The views expressed on this podcast by myself or my guests may not represent the views of the studios that we work for.
Game design with Joe Method, episode 21.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? So for today's episode, I thought I would. One of the main ideas of this podcast was to find out what makes something fun, but the other purpose was to help people get in the game industry. So if they had a question or they're wondering how they would exactly go about getting in the game industry, that's another thing I always wanted to ask every developer I interviewed. So in this episode, I'm just compiling all the advice I got. So if people, who are barely being introduced to this podcast, they can kind of get a gist of what it's about. And in case anyone just cares about that, they could just listen to this podcast. So this episode. So in this one, I just compile all of the advice I've ever gotten so far on this podcast about how to get in the game industry. And then there's one other interview that I didn't, for some reason, like my biggest fear is I interview someone and halfway through it's not actually recording, and that's actually what happened with one of my guests. But I did record the second half of the interview somehow, and his advice for getting in the game industry is in here as well. And then I give my own opinion because I'm very opinionated. I give my own opinion and advice on how to get in the game industry at the end as well. So I hope you enjoy. I am here in Los Angeles, California with Tamar Zeithlian. Is that pronounced right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And what is your exact title right now, Tamar?
So right now, I am a technical art director at a new indie company called Wemo Media.
So if you could give advice to people, maybe they're just graduating or in high school who want to get in the game industry, what would you tell them?
Oh, that depends on what kind of job they're trying to get in the game industry.
I think a lot of kids, well, from my experience, when I was teaching, they kind of just were, I'm going to make games, and then they would just go to school, to AI, and then but without even knowing about it. So that's what I've known, is that people just want to go in and just make games like there's you just do everything or something. And technically you do, sometimes you do everything.
That's interesting, because I was actually going to kind of suggest that kind of thing. Not that you do everything, but my advice would be that we're way beyond the years of specialized talent.
Right, that's true.
It's especially for artists, if you just say you're an environment artist and that's it, it's you better be a pretty freaking amazing environment artist, and you're gonna end up being a lead for 2 outsourcing houses or something like that.
Right.
So
you do have to know production also as well.
Yeah. Production for sure. If you wanna stay in the game industry, you have to know production.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, it's all gonna go up like that. But the thing I was mentioning about the knowing a lot of different things is the indie scenes. Getting more and more popular.
Right.
And it's still pretty good for you to have a okay, so let's say you're you want to do game design. You should definitely have something up that people can play and download. And so you can have some numbers and some feedback and some test results and whatnot to help you in your line of work. When you get an interview and whatnot, then you could talk about all your experience that you had on that project and whatnot. And if you worked on other people on it, it's even better.
Right.
And it's even more possible nowadays for a small team to be successful.
Yeah.
It's like before, forget about it. You have to work for Activision. You have to work for EA.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. They're kind of like the gatekeepers for your content reaching anyone. But now you could reach anyone, but
it's still saturated though. It's you put an app out there. It's not gonna. People aren't gonna be oh, that's something new, cool.
Yeah,
you still have to have something that's gonna be viral or
it's gonna resonate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need a reason for people to want to use it and play with each other with it.
Yeah, even then, I still think you'd still expect your first project and second to go awry. You know, and because I don't think anyone's ever come out with their first thing being crazy, you know, success. It's always like the Angry Birds guy. That was like their 20-somethingth game that they did. So like, so I think my advice would be to get your first project like done and out of the way, and like learn everything from it, and then. Yeah.
Even when you're running a business, like even if you like, let's say you got some sort of contract deal from a publisher, and this is like your first gig, your first game that it's gonna be released, but that still applies.
Yeah.
You know, it's still something you should use as a learning experience rather than this thing's gonna make me all the money that I want. It's gonna save my company and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like when you treat it just as a learning experience, there's a lot more. First, you won't be upset when it doesn't take off. But second, you'll actually learn a lot more if you're just looking at it as a learning experience rather than this went wrong or this went right and be upset about it. You know, you're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. That's what happens when you outsource to these people or something.
And for artists, I would recommend them to also be technical a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna hire an artist. Like if I choose between two artists, I'm definitely gonna hire the one that also happens to know how to scan or rig, or also happens to know how to use the editor.
Yeah. That's true.
It's just a given. There's no way for you to be an artist that's not technical unless you are, amazing concept artist or at such a high position where you don't really need to be touching the editor anymore or anything like that. And then for programming, that's still hot money. That's still people all still need programmers, and we're still looking for programmers. It's really hard to find a really good programmer. It is because it's like, yeah, sure, you might know how to program, but that's not enough. You need to build it in such a way where you're not gonna go back and rewrite code, and you're not making like special case code, or it can be reused somewhere else.
It's not, you can't hard code everything. It's got to be very modular. Yeah, I did. I made the mistake of I did an indie game 3 years ago. No, 4 years ago, and basically I had the programmer work the same time we were designing the game. So he was programming one thing and our design needs change. So I definitely learned a lot there because he was doing special case stuff because we didn't know what we were going to need until we were done designing. And then plus he designed the editor and the designers didn't design it. So he's like, oh yeah, click on this and it opens this window. When this window opens, click on this. And then you copy this from this. And it was like, it was the worst user interface ever. So yeah, definitely, I think my advice for a designer would be to know about art pipeline and know about like a little bit how to write a technical document, just so you can communicate with the programmer so you guys can like talk the same language, that'll really help. And art pipeline will help too, just because it's just really great to be aware, just because like when you're asking for things, you know what you're asking for. Yeah. And you know how long it'll take, and then you could set it in your budget or whatever.
Yeah, what your example also proves, like another good lesson is that like don't add program for features that you don't know you need yet, kind of thing. You should only do the very bare minimum features, and then you work with it. And you're like, oh, okay, we need to add an extra, I don't know, dampening on the rotation or something like that. Whatever you need.
Yeah, I definitely. I've done that a few times, feature creeped, and my programmer doesn't like it at all. Like, it'd be cool if we had a swimming level.
No, that wouldn't. It wouldn't be cool at all.
Hi, this is Joe Method again. That's my intro, is hi. And today I have a special guest in my studio, Jason Crawford.
Hello.
And why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your history.
Okay. I've been in game development for probably around 12 years. My entry into the business was co-founding a game development company in New York City called Brooklyn Games with ex-Microsoft Xbox launch team guy, Robert Lindsley. He's a games industry veteran, and we did that together for a while. I made lots and lots of games for all sorts of clients. Sesame Street, Hasbro, Sony, Atari, Acclaim, the whole MGM Interactive, a whole bunch of other companies. We did mainly casual and some social, but mainly casual gaming. Before casual gaming was what it is today, that's for sure.
Right.
And then from there, I started a company called SwitchGames.com, which is a peer-to-peer marketplace where gamers wouldn't have to go to GameStop. They could transact directly with each other in a custom commerce environment that we created, social commerce. And then after that, I ended up at Avatar Labs as game director, doing original IP for that company. Facebook, mainly Facebook. That's all I've done so far is the Facebook stuff.
Do you have any advice for noob developers, like just kids coming out of high school, want to start an indie game or just want to get their foot in the game industry? Do you have any advice for them?
Well, I think anyone who's it's a great time to be an indie developer. It's a great time to be a kid who's passionate about games and wants to figure out the dev kits and sit down and build things, because like I've never seen in games ever before. I mean, it's really kind of like back to the days of the 2600 right now. It's open,
right,
and it's the Wild West. And if you make a great game, you will get traction if you make a terrific game. And when you're young, you can be broke, and you don't need sleep. So I would say to any young person, who's interested in it, just work your ass off. Just bust your ass. Just like take advantage of, being able to survive on ramen for a month, and really max that out, and just really just put an enormous amount of time in it, and keep it simple.
Right.
Keep it simple. Don't try to make an Pac-Man MMORPG, whack-a-mole game. Just pick a mechanic, and it can be as simple as you ever can imagine, and keep it simple. If it's going to be a casual, independent game, keep it extraordinarily simple mechanics and just hone them, and just make it more and more and more awesome. Like every day, you should be thinking about how you can make this game built on a single mechanic more awesomer.
Right, that's a new word.
Yeah.
More
awesomer.
All right, so
that would be my advice. Is just work hard and make it simple and kick ass on it and just make it really, really, really good on a really simple mechanic.
All right, I'm writing this down.
Don't over design. Don't try to do too much.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a big problem with students.
And if it's a mechanic, think of a good wrapper for it. Think of a good story that can support it. There's nothing worse than knockoff games that basically just swap out the characters and that makes no sense. Those games piss me off. If you want to borrow a mechanic, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That's what games are. I mean, there's only, probably 9 mechanics or something
Pretty much.
ever anyway. But if you're going to borrow mechanics, that's fine. But just make sure you get creative with what you're going to put around it. Don't just take something and then slap different artwork into it and try to improve the gameplay that way. It's always the worst.
Right, and the wrapper, in case anyone doesn't know, wrapper is basically what the game, what the player sees. Essentially, it's like what is the context of the game. So the wrapper for
it's the story.
Wrapper for Farmville is you're on a farm. Essentially, you're playing a farmer on a farm.
Yeah, it's a clicky drainer game, but
right.
yeah, you're on a farm using things.
It's the same as Mafia Wars. They use the same mechanics, but Mafia Wars, the wrapper is your mob. And yeah, it's true. A lot of the games now, March 2012, that are being released all have zombie wrappers because Plants vs Zombies and
Plants vs Zombies is popular because of the mechanics of that game and the story directly supports the mechanics that
Right.
that are in that game.
Yeah.
The wrapper is really nicely tied to the mechanics, and then so other people just either will take a Plants vs Zombies game and stick different art in it, or
Right.
they'll take the zombies
Right.
and make a game that has nothing to do with zombies, thinking
Yeah.
that is going to make a great engaging game.
Yeah.
You might get some accidental hits when people are searching for Plants vs
Right.
Zombies, but that's not good game making.
That's not at all. You're not going to win an award for that. And then also adding verses to the title is not going to help either. So, all right. So that's some sound advice. Hi, I'm here in San Francisco, and with me I have Matt Hansen.
Hey, I'm Matt Hansen, senior producer at Double Fine Productions.
So, do you have any advice for someone who wants to get their foot in the door of the game industry?
Specifically to be a producer, or anything? I guess it depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, as a producer, because you have a lot of experience in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing about being a producer, as an entry-level producer, is that, you know, the things that make a good producer, you're not going to find out during an interview. And there's not really a lot you can prove to somebody that, like, oh, I have those skills. You should trust me with millions of dollars to make your game. Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
But you can start doing things that are lower risk things on your own. I think, like, doing game jams, you know, there's tons of game jams. We just did Molly Jam. Actually, Molly Jam was right next door. Was where they did the actual.
Oh, is that the Peter Molyneux?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, Giant Bomb is right next door to my apartment, and that's when they did Molly Jam. And it's just basically people who were students or, you know, just enthusiasts, and then also a bunch of developers from this area just met for a weekend and made
cool.
games. And I think, like, in some cases, people were the de facto producer guy, and just going through that, where it's, you know, in the end, if you fail, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, if I fail, there's millions of dollars at risk, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier to get into that stuff. But I think it's important for a producer to have a lot of social skills. You have to be able to talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to comfort people, encourage people. You have to be charismatic. You have to be inspiring. It's tough, and you're inspiring people not during times where they're happy. You're sometimes inspiring people when they're like, you know, there's a death march on some projects to, like, finish the game, and you have to keep people's heads up and make sure that they're still emotionally invested in making a great game. And I think that's it's not something that's easy to learn on your own until you're in that situation. But I think finding opportunities to be a good leader, you know, whether you know you're involved in side projects with your friends or whatever, like being that person who's the really organized guy. That's because the thing isn't. There's tons of different producers out there. The way I've found to be the most successful is just to be the person that is the hub for the whole game.
Right.
And I'm not the guy who's coming up with all the ideas. Like right now, I'm working with Ron Gilbert on a game, and you know he's the creative lead. I'm the producer on it, and so it's a lot of like taking his vision and conveying that out, like figuring out the logistics of turning that into a game.
Right.
You know, all the nuts and bolts of like, all right, so he wants X. Like, how are we going to break that into work, and what order we do it in, and like, what's the priority of that work? How long should it take to do it? At what point do we start reviewing that work and see where we are?
Right.
Like, I think understanding the nuts and bolts of how games are made is a pretty important skill. You know, I'm not a great programmer. I'm not the best artist in the world. And I'm not the greatest designer, but I know what all those jobs do. Like, I understand all the different roles of what a scripter does compared to a core programmer. I understand, you know, what a character artist does compared to a world builder. I think like understanding what all the different jobs on the team are is super important, because I think, and also understanding how long it should take for something to get done. Because if you go to somebody and you're like, "Can you build this character?" and they're like, "Yeah, sure, it's going to take me 3 weeks." That may be, depending on the complexity of the character, that may be true. But in some other cases, you might know, all right, well, you know what? Why don't I give you 5 days to get that done, and then we'll review and see where it's at.
Right.
And in most cases, you know, people will work to the time that you give them. You know, so you give them 3 weeks, they'll take 3 weeks. You give them 5 days, they may not finish it, but they'll get pretty damn close. And so it's like understanding what's possible, you know, with getting work done, either as a programmer, artist, designer, or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's pretty important. and as long as you're consistent as a producer, like you don't waver on your opinion or your management style. Like you're always consistently honest with people. You have your plan doesn't keep changing all the time.
Right.
Like you're the person they can depend on to have that idea and kind of stick to it. That's also really important for building confidence in the team. I guess these are all things of how to be a good producer, but getting into being a producer is tough. I think it's a lot of tenacity of like letting people know that you want to do that, finding opportunities. Like going in through QA was a perfect thing for me. I think there was no other way I could have done this.
Yeah.
Like I think like I was a QA tester, then a QA lead. Like that's just okay. Now I'm a little bit. When I was a lead, I had a little more management experience. Like I'm learning a little bit more about the role. I'm making more connections on the development team.
Right.
Learning a little bit more about what they do, and then like eventually, the way I got my first interview as a producer in production was from just knowing people.
Right.
Just they're like, hey, you seem like you have your shit together. Why don't you try interviewing for this? I think it was a production coordinator job or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thrilled to do it. But I think if I kept to myself, or if I had been really unprofessional at work, they wouldn't have ever come to me.
Yeah. It's just always kind of showing that you're capable of doing stuff and being nice to everyone, and then taking the opportunity when it comes along. I think most of the producers I know come from QA, and I think that's really important too because even though I'm not a producer, I understand like how long an entire game cycle takes, and working all the way from like QA to designer, you kind of get like a broader view of it all, so you kind of know in general like
Absolutely.
like the entire development process for the most part. Except programming, they're like on their own world.
I think just reading bugs when I first got in there gave me a lot of insight into what are the kind of things that people are facing,
Right. Oh yeah.
After the game's beta.
That's big.
Like what kind of stuff are they fixing? How long do they normally take to fix it?
Right.
Like it's a cool way to learn about that stuff.
Yeah, and that's cool because QA is entry level, so you can learn a lot about a development.
It's just super easy, and as you know, it's super easy when you get in QA, because not everybody has the same kind of aspirations as you do.
Right.
To kind of just get caught up in the it's a fun time for me to hang out with my friends and play games, and I'll write some bugs so I don't get fired kind of mentality. But I think it's if you go in and you're really serious about it, and even when people aren't watching, you're still working hard, and you're trying to make the most of every day, and you're taking it seriously. Like this is a real job. This is an opportunity for me to learn some stuff and kind of advance my career. Those are the people I see today that are now in the industry.
Yeah.
The people that were kind of screwing around or whatever, they're probably either still in QA or they're working somewhere else.
Yeah, I only know of a few people. I know Chris Molina he's a level designer with I forgot the other guy's name. And I think Marzola is a producer. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anyone else.
And we worked when I worked with you. We worked on a floor with 250 people.
Oh yeah.
Working on tons of games.
Yeah.
And they would come and go, but the ones that I saw that stuck around were the ones that really cared. And they did it they weren't just doing it just for a paycheck. They were doing it because they realized the importance of it. I think the one problem I see with people coming out of school, and I admittedly had the same kind of mentality when I came out of school, is I'm too good for QA.
Right.
I have this expensive degree. I am an awesome artist or designer or whatever. I don't need to go into QA. I'm just going to jump right into a development job. Yeah. And it's that's just not the reality. Listen, it's possible. That can happen. Yeah. It's just very rare. And I think if you want to set yourself up for the best possible situation, and you just want to get in and start learning, get into QA. It's a good way of starting early with very low risk to anybody, and you're still making decent money because you can do okay in QA for a while.
Yeah, you shouldn't be in it for the money anyway.
Yeah, but there are plenty of people that they're like, I want to start paying back my student loans.
Right.
I need to actually live, not in a cardboard box.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, because that's always been my biggest gripe is because I graduated from the Art Institute, and everyone's like, all right, now I'm going straight to Halo or whatever. And I'm really adamant about the whole, what is that called? They call it something in wrestling, paying your dues. Like I'm all about the paying your dues.
Absolutely.
And because you won't really understand the whole gravity of your role until you've kind of, were in QA and other roles like that. Then you'd like appreciate it more, I think.
I think that also goes to like you were saying when you came out of the Art Institute, like when I came out of Savannah College of Art and Design, a lot of people were just like, I want to go work on Halo. I want to work on Unreal or whatever. And it's like, listen, I understand your excitement for that game, and I like those games too.
Yeah.
The best way to start at a company is to not go after the biggest. Like, don't go try to work on the biggest game ever. Like, going to work on a team with like 5 to 10 dudes, you will learn a lot more from 5 to 10 dudes than you will from a team of 200 to 300 people.
Right.
Because you're just a cog at that point, and you're only going to see a very small subsection of game development.
Mm-hmm.
When you work on a smaller team of only a few people, you're going to have to wear multiple hats. You're going to have to do things that you probably wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah.
You'll see every facet of game development, and I think that's how you learn how to do it. Like, I think I stumbled into it. I didn't mean to do it that way, but I'm glad I did, because I got to see all those different roles and like what every person does in those roles, and it helped me out tremendously.
That's awesome. Hello, this is Joe Method again with my second podcast, and with me I have Matthew Hutchinson, who is a game designer for AAA games and a level designer. Say hi, Matt.
Hello, what's going on, guys, in the podcast universe?
If I was a noob in the game industry, like I'm like some kid who wants to do games, I have a programmer friend and I have like an artist friend, and I want to make a game, and I want to make, I got this, RPG FPS game I want to make on the PC. What would be your advice? Like, what should I do first? Just in general.
Should probably work on Mass Effect. If you want to make an RPG FPS. Work for Beyer or Bethesda.
Like,
I would say go to school. That's the best advice. Go to school.
Right.
Go to school. Because you can, and the thing is, expect to do hard work. There's no such thing anymore as the paper design only designer. That just doesn't really exist anymore.
Right.
It's going to get phased out. Like, there are some people who have that spot, and they've been holding on to it for the last 20 years or so now. And they're really lucky. But most people don't have that luxury. And I think you learn how to be a better designer when you're implementing yourself, because you can see the different pitfalls in your own design, and technically, and in just when you implement it, you get to see it, play through it, iterate on it, and then you can see where the holes are. I mean, any way you can rapidly prototype an idea, I would strongly recommend going through those avenues.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, you can't really teach experience. Like, you really. I mean, all these tidbits of information, my guest might have. They're good, but you really don't learn until you start doing it on your own, and then you could integrate it with your own style of the way you do things. But there really is no substitute for hard work. I mean, you really can't expect to go in and start hand waving and go, programmer, do this, artist, do this. You have to have experience, and you have to know exactly what this is. You can't go like, oh yeah, make the graphics pop more. It really helps because we've dealt with those people before, and it really helps if you know, like, okay, this environment asset, it doesn't look dingy enough. It needs more scrapes. It needs more cuts. It really helps to be more specific, or else you're going to have tons of reiterations on the same thing. And I think my advice would be, because I did teach a class in game design, would be to start off on the smallest project ever, like this smallest flash shooter you can possibly imagine, just so you can get used to one, finishing something, and two, you understand what a game development cycle is, like from concept to ideation to programming to art to integration to tweaking to all that stuff. Start on the smallest thing possible. That'll be my advice. And yeah, you could go to school too. I would go to school too.
Yeah. I think if it depends on what you want to do, but I think school. Here's the thing that school does: it introduces you to a bunch of people that want to do what you do, and you can use those people as resources. And they're using you too. I don't mean like manipulate people and stuff like that. I mean like they're artists who want to make art for a video game. There's programmers who want to program things for video games. There's other designers who want to design things, and there's scripters, and there's so many different departments and skill sets needed that it's near impossible to do it 100% on your own without other people's help. And I know from being online and trying to start a mod team online, you're going to get a lot of people who say they want to do something, but they'll usually all want to do the same skill set. Like if you're trying to make a map in, Source community or the Call of Duty community, you're going to get a bunch of map builders that just want to build maps. You're not necessarily going to get the guys who just want to be texture artists who make textures for the map, or people who want to make the models for the map, or guys who want to make the sound for the map, or guys who want to script the map to make the events in it cool if you're making a single player experience. So since it gives you access to all these people with different disciplines, it increases your chances to actually complete the project and get people on board. Because with the internet, there's a disconnect between people. But if it's a classroom environment where everyone kind of has to collaborate because you're trying to get a grade, or because they're there, like there's bodies, you can actually communicate and make connections with people, because connections are kind of the thing that this industry thrives on, and you need to just keep in contact with people and keep relationships going for a long time, because those are the people that are going to, instead of you trying to bank on you getting like the great AAA job, just say, okay, out of me and all my 10 friends, one of us is going to, and then they're going to get the other person in, right. And then eventually everyone's going to be at whatever company that one person is working at, because no one wants to see their friends unsuccessful.
Right. And plus you want to work with people that you can stand to be around for a long amount of time. That's how most hiring decisions are made for the most part. But yeah, getting back to the school thing, I would say that school is good because I've worked on projects where everyone worked remotely, like in different states, and then I've worked on independent projects where you don't have to be around each other all day, and then I've worked in the office with people around me, and nothing really beats working with people around you, because there's so much communication done that's more than text and words. Like there's a lot of energy, creative energy floating around when you're around people, and you get a lot more done. You get more messages are sent through that, and there's no bad communication. Another thing about school is that the reason why you want specialists, is texture artists, a dedicated modeler, dedicated rigger, dedicated animator, and so on, is because you could do it yourself, but what's going to take you like 3 hours to figure out in code, it's going to take a programmer like 15 minutes, because they do that for fun. So, I mean, you're really going to get more out of your time by getting specialists. So if you happen to have like a huge array of friends who already do it, I would do that. And the other thing is, if you choose to go to school, one thing I highly recommend is knowing what you want to do specifically. Because I've seen a lot of students on the first day of school saying, I think like 80% of my class, which I think you were in, right? The first game design class?
Yeah, I was in that class.
I think 80% of them said they wanted to be character designers. And the people who graduated, which is probably like 5% of whoever was in that class. Hardly anyone was a character designer because, you kind of, it's something you think you want, but you have to really look at, well, what is it that makes you tick? Do you want to make games? Do you want to create experiences? Or are you really an aesthetic person? Do you love creating cool looking art? Do you like figuring the way things out? Do you like systems design? Maybe you're a programmer. So you really think through what you want to do and what you want to get out of it. And that's how you have like the highest percentage. You have the best chance of graduating if you know exactly what you want to do. So yeah, that would be my advice for that if you're going to go to school. And if you're not, definitely work on the smallest project you can find. It's easy to get ambitious and try to make a Left 4 Dead on Facebook or whatever, but start off really small, extremely small. And if the game is fun with placeholder art, it's going to be fun, period. So don't focus on the art. My first indie mod project I worked on was in 2006, and like the first thing we did was work on art, which is horrible because we had a concept artist working around the clock, and the programmer worked like an hour a week or whatever. So it was like very backwards way of doing things, and obviously it failed. I mean, there's no way we could have. This is Joe Method. I'm Skyping with Hugo Beyer. He's in Dallas, Texas. So, what's your title? What would you describe your title as?
Right now, as an artist?
Yeah.
What I'm working on, we don't have as many, like, we're all seniors per se, so we're all experienced game developers, so I would call everybody over there a senior, and myself a senior.
Okay.
There's no, like, just specific position for my job right now. I'm just an artist.
Oh, okay. Is there anything you specialize in?
I am a bit of generalist, but I love doing anything between props and characters.
Might be coming out of high school or deciding to go to school for game art. What do you recommend them to do?
Nothing. Go work with construction. don't go to game industry. No, I'm just kidding. I have a lot of pleasure working in the industry, and for the people I have met on this industry, it's just so nice to know a lot of talented people, and they're all willing to learn more. A lot of people that I know, they're willing to learn more and more, and the competition also, it's what makes us move, and if you're in college and you're just there to be there because your dad is paying you your college, or you are actually paying for it, but you don't care whatever, I will say to you, just quit the idea, because like if you're not willing to go home, study yourself, and make the best out of you, it's not worth it. I mean, if you think that you're going to get a lot of money from the game industry as well, I'm sorry, you're not going to.
Right.
And you're really going to the wrong industry. Although there are rare cases that you can have a really good life on the game industry, and I have a good life, and I'm actually fine the way I am right now. And I think that people can get into that process of like, I know that I can do that, and you have to prove yourself all the time that you know that you can do that character, you know that you can do that environment, but don't just say it. Just go to your home and just do it. I think that's the most important thing, and then the conclusion of it, the conclusion of you having all that hard work, it's a nice job later on, or a nice salary.
All right. I'm here in Alpine. It's Alpine, right?
Yeah.
Alpine, California, with the co-founders of Adversary Games, Colleen Wilson and Ajari Wilson.
Hi.
Hello. For kids starting out who might be interested in programming or art or design, based on your experience, and you guys are like learning the hard way, which is the only way to learn. What advice would you give them? Like, if they didn't know what to do first?
Start doing it. just get whatever program you could find. I mean, the way I started making music was I got this. I didn't have any money. You know what I mean? I just got what little money I did have. I just went and purchased a MTV Music Generator for PS1. And just started learning from there, and just learning how to just the basics of music composition, and then once I got a little bit of money, I bought a computer and I got Fruity Loops and just learned from there, and then I just started once I got my confidence up, I just started contacting people, just basically cold calling them.
Right.
Any project I saw, hey, do you need music for your game? Do you need sound effects? And then people would contact me, email me back, and yeah, I need this and I need that. Yeah, I'd give them a demo reel. I'd give them my resume if once I started building up games. And I just started like that, and then once I started getting more money, started buying better equipment, better software, and that's how I got my start doing that.
And Colleen?
Well, at first I was an artist, and I thought that that's what I was pretty much going to be, but I started thinking that programming was kind of cool, so that's when I started learning programming. I pretty much started from the DirectX for beginning DirectX books and C++ books, like C++ in 24 hours or something like that. But that is not 24 hours.
It's false advertising.
Yeah. But yeah, just lots of different books. Visual Studio books for programming. Pretty much, if you're doing X and A, then you'd want to start with C number. But I started with C++ because it seems that it seems like everyone does C++ for games.
Right.
But, now C number is like the new thing, I guess. So now I'm gonna start doing C number. But yeah, it's pretty much you just have to start from the beginning and just build your way up to.
What are the rules?
There are no rules.
What are the rules?
Hey, this is Joe Method again, and I'm here in Los Angeles, California with Calix, Reneau?
Reneau.
Reneau, okay.
Reneau.
Alright, that's close. Right. Yeah, I've never asked you.
It's pretty French.
I thought it was French. Is it French?
It is French.
Oh, okay.
I think it would be like Renoir if there was an X at the end.
Okay.
But I also don't speak French, so I could be making that up.
We'll never know. And what's your official title right now?
I don't actually have an official title. But I am the principal game designer at Seed Studio.
If you could give like advice to someone like in high school or just kind of interested in the game industry, doesn't know how to start, what would you say?
To be a designer, the most straightforward way to do it is the scariest sounding way to do it. You just start designing games. There is no other way. You can spend all your time playing games and looking at games and thinking about games, and you're not a designer until you start designing games. And they don't have to be, computer games. I used to make up rules about how like you do if you want to do D&D, if you want to do I did martial arts for a while, and so I would train with my family, and I would just make up rules for like how the story would happen, or set up little tournaments for the martial arts and stuff like that. And even that, or altering the rules of Monopoly. Play Monopoly and change the rules, make that a fun game. Because you own Monopoly.
Yeah. Everyone has it in their house.
You don't like it.
No one does.
Change it.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect opportunity because all the materials are right there, and everyone already knows Monopoly. So you just say, okay, this is different.
Right.
This is what we change, and then people can get on board easily. and you can change it quickly. You can be like, oh, that didn't work. Well, oh, but this was really cool. What happened when people started stabbing each other in the back, or the world exploded? It was amazing. Start with board games. Start with do text adventures. Choose what you can do with the means available, and just start making. Design a card game. All you have to do is start writing on paper.
Yeah.
Cut it up. You have a card game.
It's good. And I think the thing you mentioned earlier is actually a great idea. When you dissected
documenting
Yeah.
documenting a game, like analyzing it from the outside and figuring out what actually went into the things that you like. A couple of my friends, I haven't done it in a long time. I should start up again. But a couple of my friends do like level analysis.
Mm-hmm.
They'll play a level and they'll find a level that they really like in a game that really stuck out to them as being well built or enjoyable, and they will go back and they will be map makers. They'll draw out the boundaries of the map. They'll figure out where it is, and they'll sit down with paper, spend an hour, 2 hours just walking around the map, figuring out where everything is. And then you can look at that, and at first it'll look really random. It'll be just shapes. But you'll start to see that these things aren't accidents.
Right.
And seeing the way that these decisions are being made and what they result in, having that altered perspective on what the product is, what games are, is a huge step forward in understanding how you can make them.
Yeah, and I think also realizing the amount of work that goes into it too, because when you realize that this character has 80 animations, and there's hundreds of different assets, and there's all these scripts, all these scripted moments, and as a designer, realize that you're going to touch every single one of those things at some point in some way. If you're implementing them or taking them out of a system, out of a program, putting them inside the editor, debugging, playing it over and over, gameplay balance, design, art, direction.
Yeah.
There's definitely
You're going to touch all of that.
You're going to touch every single piece of it, and I think if you're not scared off by that, even just analyzing it is a lot of work.
Yeah, and taking the time to do that can be really helpful. My dad is a screenplay writer, and he went through and he started doing the same thing with film. You can, and it's a good idea to do with film to see the structure of story, and you can see how everything starts to line up. Like similar things happen all at the same time, and there are reasons for this. Because, and as you start to explore it and see it for yourself, that becomes like I could tell you that Jurassic Park is two stories. There's the story of getting to Jurassic Park and escaping Jurassic Park, and that the switch at exactly 60 minutes is when that switch happens.
Oh wow!
But that isn't meaningful until you go through and you see how that builds up.
Right.
And it doesn't take that long to do. Just write down everything that happens.
Yeah, and it's funny how much the things matter, because the point of the designer is he's supposed to do stuff that you don't notice but you'll feel.
Yeah.
And I've one of my favorite movies is Batman 1989, and I love it for a lot of reasons. But there's something I didn't notice. I got my hands on the screenplay version of it, and I didn't know that the way Bruce Wayne walks into Vicky Vale's apartment is the same way Joker walks in. They both say the same line. And I never noticed that before, but they said it so that you could show the contrast of how similar and also how different the characters are.
Yeah.
But that never comes across, but you just feel it. You just know that connection. So analyzing is a good way to discover stuff like that. Stuff you won't ever notice just by playing it. But when you analyze it, you're like, oh, that's why this weapon is this color, or that's why blah blah blah.
And also taking the time to do that just once will help you if you're playing games casually or watching movies casually. You'll start to see those same things cropping up again. You'll recognize them without as much effort, and you'll start to more innately understand the games that you play and why they work.
Yeah, and then you do it long enough, and you would just start making decisions based off of that experience, and it'll kind of be your gut feeling,
Yeah.
when you know a system's going to work or not.
Intuitive design.
Hey guys, I'm in Burbank, California, along with Sean McNamara.
Yep. How's it going?
And what's your official title, Sean?
I'm officially the lead game designer at 44 Studios.
Do you have any advice for anyone that wants to get in the game industry, someone in high school, and what should they work on if they want to work as a game designer?
As a game designer,
Yeah.
coming out of high school, one of the things I always tell people who ask me this question is if you're in high school, and you have a computer, and you're a gamer, and you want to become a game designer, download UDK, download CryEngine 3, because it's all you can download it for free now.
Right.
There are a plethora. There are so many tutorials online. All you got to do is search Google for UDK tutorials, and you can teach yourself a fair amount,
Right.
of stuff, especially with the way, I know you've used Unreal before in school, right? With Kismet and everything.
Yeah.
So they make it, it's difficult to kind of understand at first, but if you keep doing it, it'll flow together eventually, and you'll basically just be teaching yourself how to use, software that we use in the industry,
Right. And I think a good thing to kind of point out is even though different software might be different, like Unity and UDK,
Yep.
They follow the same principles.
Yeah, the fundamentals are exactly. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so if some weird game engine comes out, or if there's proprietary engines at other game studios.
On Man vs. Wild, we used an engine called Vicious Engine.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, I haven't.
No, not many people have, but it was, it was a decent engine, and it fit our budgetary needs and, all that kind of crap.
Uh-huh.
And it was interesting because, I had just come out of school with Unreal and everything, and it was really quite easy to transition from, Unreal into, an engine I had never even heard of before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you said, if you know the fundamentals of 3D Max, Maya, Unreal, all that kind of crap, it transfers over to everything else.
It's a really good tip because no one said that yet.
Well, yeah, and freaking get online and get on a forum somewhere and start a mod team, and
Right.
find someone who can, do some art or teach yourself how to do some art and just the internet's your friend because you can learn a lot on the internet. You know what I mean?
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Joe Method again here, and I'm here in Sherman Oaks, California, at Cafe 50s with Scott Rogers.
Hey, how's it going?
And Scott, you're you're at THQ. Your latest.
Well, formerly of, but creative manager at THQ was the last position with the video game publisher I held.
Right, and you actually released a book. Is it 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2010. And then a new one that just came out last week.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what's the new one called?
The new one is called Swipe This, the Great Guide to Touchscreen Game Design. And where Level Up, my previous book, was about video game design in general, Swipe This is specifically geared towards tablet and mobile gaming devices, anything with a touchscreen.
Okay. Do you have any advice for kids who want to get started making games in high school? Or...
Absolutely. And that is start making games. Don't wait for anyone to invite you to the party, right? If you have a good idea for a game, I'm so envious of kids nowadays because this is the best time ever for anyone to start a career in video games, right?
Yeah.
Think of all the things available to you, right? You have schools, and you have books, and you have YouTube videos, and you have internet chat rooms. You have places to go where you can find friends to make games with you. You have free software to make any genre of game you want. If you want to make an RPG, there's a free RPG maker. If you want to make an action game, there's a free, there's things like Scratch, and there's whole games that have like Little Big Planet is such a phenomenal game engine. And any genre of game is acceptable nowadays. When I was starting out in games, I would pitch all these game ideas, and I'd say, I have this great idea about a guy who goes around and captures monsters, and then you have him fight other monsters, right? And you train, and it's kind of a combination of a Tamagotchi and Mortal Kombat. And I had guys at publishers go, that's a stupid idea. That's a game designer idea. And then Pokemon came out, and I'm pulling my hair out going, why wasn't anyone listening to me? Right? I mean, that's really, I came up with Pokemon before Pokemon. Well, it probably was in development when I came up with it, but still.
Sorry, I have to tell you guys. She's listening to you talk, and she's like, he's spitting out awesome over there.
Well, thank you very much. Anyway, so if you're a kid or even a grown-up and your dream is to make video games and you're passionate and you don't suck, then you will make it and you will create something. And then, of course, the key is make it, get it in front of as many people as possible, listen to what they have to say, take that advice, make your game better, and repeat. Just keep that process over and over again, and one day you will have lots of games that you can then walk into a game publisher, or you can walk to another developer and go, look, I love video games. I make video games. Here are my games. And people go, yeah, these are actually really fun, or they look great, or I've played this before. I know this game. And they will hire you, and you will, start making a living at it. Or just publish it yourself. Do it through iTunes or through Android Store. That is the miracle for me. That is like... That's the thing I get the most jealous about. I have a friend, his name's Asher Vollmer, and he is a super smart programmer fella that I know at USC, a school that I do some occasional teaching at. And he just makes his own games. He made one called Puzzle Juice, and it was like within the top 5 for like a week and it's this great mashup of Tetris and it's Tetris and Boggle, and it's goofy and it's fun and simple, but it's totally fun to play. And I just made a game, and there it is, and I'm gonna make another one. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but I'll work. And that is so exciting. Because it used to be you needed all this money and you needed all this huge team and you needed all these other resources, and you don't need that anymore. So it's now it's the democratization of video games, right? You can make it any genre, any style of game. It's all valid. The only thing that is going to keep you from becoming hugely successful is quality. And that's how it should be, right? The good stuff rises to the top. Everything else, well, you use it as a learning experience and go on to the next one.
I am Skyping with Tom Bryan in Manchester, England.
Yep.
And you just finished a game called No Time to Explain, right?
Yep. You're a kid who wants to make games and you leave school. You probably think you're wondering whether you want to go on one of these courses. And I've not seen every game design. I know there are ones out there that are great, but it's probably worth it to meet 30 or 50 people who are the same as you, even if you don't learn anything to do with game design. But before you do that, before you think about anything, going to school to learn it, just download Unity or something, download Flash, search YouTube for a tutorial on how to do it, and before you know it, you'll have made like the first game in a week.
Right.
By the time I was like 18 or something, I'd already made about 12 games. And they were all terrible. Everyone's first game is terrible.
Right, exactly.
So I kind of went to school. It wasn't really good, but it's kind of good. But you don't really need to. But sometimes you do. That's the answer. I think if you don't know where to start, definitely download something and start doing it. Because if you have to start making your own games, then you're forced to learn how to draw stuff, how to put a game together, and you'll be forced to wear different hats. And that's useful to anyone. Anyone who's, no matter like whatever you're working in, like if you're a coder or an animator or a designer or anything, you want to know about what everyone else is doing. So like doing all this stuff myself, I learned a lot of stuff that I don't need to learn, but it's still super useful when talking to other people that are working on games, like the music guy or the voice guy, or whenever I have to write down design stuff for people. I know how to talk to coders now.
Right.
Even though I don't like coding games at all. I love doing all the animation stuff, but all the coding stuff that I have to do is still super useful anyway.
Right.
So if you don't know what you're doing, try making a game. And if you do know what you're doing, keep making games.
Yeah.
Split it up. Get someone who's business minded. So even though indie games are amazing and you can do whatever you want and have fun and make all these amazing things, get someone to cover the business stuff, because otherwise get someone who knows how to write a press release and get some kind of publisher deal going, because otherwise you'll just collapse. It'll never come out. You'll ruin yourself.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. It's very hard / impossible to do like absolutely everything on your own. Anyone who ever made anything great really did have those two things. Walt Disney had his brother Roy Disney do all the business end. There's no way he was going to do that on his own. Coming from the Method Cave in Los Angeles, California. And today, my guest is a former student of mine, Robert Favre.
Hello, everyone.
And he's just about done with his course. He's about to graduate from the Art Institute, maybe in about a year or so. So I thought it'd be neat to get his perspective on the game industry. Is there any advice that you have for new students, like starting out?
Well, for new students, all I can say is this: before you start any real project, I'm all for going in and actually, modeling something off the bat, but you have to have a lot of planning before you even start touching any drawings or anything like that. I mean, you have to make sure that you have a proper structure before and a proper schedule set up for what you need, because the only thing that's going to do is make you work faster and more efficient. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I just got out the grid paper and mapped out like my stuff versus actually just going into an engine and stuff and doing that. I mean, it helps you so much and keeps you really structured and really efficient. Again, so you prevent doing all the old nighter projects in the crunch time.
Right. Yeah. I think that's kind of like a good beginner mistake is not planning anything out, and not only that, but also over doing something that's way out of scope at the same time, and they actually go hand in hand. Because if you actually mapped out your like Super Mario Brothers MMO, you'd realize how much work was going to go into it, and you would never start it to begin with. Hello, this is Joe Method. I'm in downtown Los Angeles with Ben Vaccaro.
Hello.
Ben Vaccaro is a game developer, and you deal mostly with programming or technical?
Yeah, I'm a Unity programmer right now.
Unity programmer. All right, and then you graduated from the Art Institute with a bachelor's degree in science for game art and design. That's where I ran into this fellow. Do you have any advice for noobs just starting out in the game industry who are like, they're just either starting out or they're in high school and they want to get into the games, but they don't know what to do first? Like, what would you suggest? Well, how did you get started, first of all? Like, what made you make that jump?
Go into games or become a game programmer?
We'll go into games. And then programmer.
Yeah. I liked games. Originally, I wanted to be an artist. Going into, like, 3D animation. I just took a class and, found I was decent at it and decided I wanted to increase my skills. So I ended up going to school for it. When I was in school, and I'd always been interested, and if you're listening out there, I'd always been interested in programming, but always looked at it as like this daunting thing that like, that's way too hard. I can't do that.
Right.
That's way too much. And I ended up taking a Flash prototyping class, and in making something in Flash, realizing, oh, you can do this. Like, the feedback from games is very rewarding. And the realization that it's not that hard.
Right.
Like, yes, there's a lot of hardcore programming, but it mostly seems to just take time and practice and interest in going out and learning it piece by piece. So someone that wants to get into it, I'd say pick up an engine that is good for prototyping, like Unity.
Right.
You can pick it up for free or the UDK, and just start making stuff. Unity for me, I haven't messed with the UDK in a while. The latest incarnations of it.
Right, that's the Unreal Development Kit.
Yes. But Unity 3D is very open. It lets you do whatever you want, but it has no starting points. Look at him putting me on the spot like this. If you're going to make a game that's good. Don't just make anything. Don't clone Tetris. Don't make another, Bejeweled, please. Right. Make something that you would actually want to play.
Right.
If you do make Bejeweled or Tetris so that you can practice, don't try to sell it. Don't put it on the market.
And that's actually a really good tip is to imitate a game just to test out, Like, I wonder if I could build Tetris,
Yeah, that's generally the standards. Tetris, Pac-Man, build the originals and then go from there. But don't put it on the market.
Because I know every time I see a shoot 'em up game, I don't care what wrapper it has. I don't care if it's Mafia or it's in space or it's based on an anime I like. I'm immediately not going to play it because I played that game since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
So,
And again, this is your first attempt at making Bejeweled. You're not going to do it as well as a team of 50 people who are being paid, out the nose for it.
Exactly.
It's been done. It's been done better.
Yeah.
Maybe your 50th attempt at Bejeweled.
Yeah.
Where you've gone nuts and made all kinds of crazy mechanics where things explode and it's got physics and NPCs are running around your Bejeweled board or whatever.
Hey, these are some good ideas. Writing this down.
If you make that, then you can put it on the market. Until then, please don't flood the market.
Yeah.
Until you make something that you really care about.
Hey guys, I'm Skyping with Jesse Schell, who is the professor of entertainment technology and game design at Carnegie Mellon University, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. And you've had a huge history in games, and also you've been an Imagineer at Disney. Do you have any advice for these kids in high school or just people starting out on how to get their start in the industry besides participating in your newest project?
Yeah, I really what it comes down to is make things. That's what it really comes down to. Figure out what you'd like to make and try to make it. There's no excuses other than your own laziness for not doing that. All the tools are there for you to do. Do you want to become a game artist or a game programmer or a game designer? It's all there. Just start doing it. And part of the way to do that is set a goal for yourself. Come up and tell all your friends, hey, by November 3rd, I'm going to have the most awesomest game ever, and it's going to be done. Just get it out there. Set a deadline for yourself. Tell people about your deadline, and try and get it done. Game jams can help with that. There's lots of things that can help, but it's basically just dive in and start doing it. Because what impresses people the most when you're trying for a job isn't what did you do in school. I mean, what did you do in school? That's nice because it's you were able to take orders and follow them. That's good. That's an important skill. But what's really going to impress people is what did you do on your own when no one was telling you what to do? Right. Did you do something great and solve a lot of hard problems and finish something? If you did all those things, everyone knows, okay, you're going to be able to make it in the industry. That's what people look for. So go and do that. And it used to be publishing a game, 10 years ago, how would you do that? Now it's easy. Put your $99 in and get your thing up on the App Store. Just get it done.
Right. Yeah. That's really good advice. And so for the people who don't know, because I guess game designer is kind of very. I guess it's kind of a vague title because it doesn't describe it fully. I've quoted you a couple of times on this podcast, and I interviewed Scott Rogers a few weeks ago, and I quoted you there too because he quotes you in his book. And you say that a game designer basically has to understand animation, anthropology, architecture, brainstorming, business, cinematography, communication, creative writing, and that's only half of the things that you list. So, is there another way of describing what a game designer does besides what they have to know?
Right. Well, no. I mean, the thing I always say is, what does a game designer do? A game designer decides how a game should be. That's what game design is about: deciding how a game should be. And it's weird, right? Because so what is my concrete skill? What does that mean? What am I writing a document, or am I sitting around imagining things?
Right.
It can be lots of. It's different with different games, right? If you're making the way you're going to make a board game is different than the way you're going to make a computer game is different than the way you're going to make a new sport. But on some level, those things are all the same. The decisions you're going to make and the way you test it and the way you evaluate it, those are all the same. So the key is, if you're really interested in game design, just don't sit here and whine that, oh, well, I could make the best PS3 thing ever if only I had a giant team of people to help me do it. Shut up with that. Go make the best dice game ever, the best board game ever. Start with that. Because if you can do that, you can take those same skills all over the place. And one of the great things about doing dice and board and card games, you can do it so super fast.
Right.
People get excited about, man, in a game jam, we made a game in 24 hours. Yeah, that's great. You want to make a card game, you can do it in 30 minutes. I mean, you could totally do it. It's not that hard. And honestly, what I find is if making card games and board games and dice games and those sorts of things, if that's not interesting to you, you're probably not going to find it interesting to make video games either.
Yeah.
Is what I generally find. So start with what you have and what you can get your hands on, and work on that and kind of get your chops up with that, and then move toward other things. If you can, it's a lot like nowadays. It's a lot like starting a band, right? Mm-hmm. If you got one guy who wrote some poems and somebody who can sing a little bit and one guy who kind of plays a guitar, that's all you need, and you've got a band. Same thing. You got one guy who can code a little, someone who could draw a little, somebody who's got some ideas. You can bust out a game on the. You can bust out a game in the App Store or something. No problem. You just gotta go do it.
Hey, what's up? It's Joe Method. I'm here in the Mandrake Bar in Los Angeles, California, with Chris Molina, who is. What's your official title?
What am I these days? I am a senior level designer. Creator of interactive nonsense, I'll say.
Do you have any advice for people who want to get in the gaming industry?
Yeah. Think twice.
So maybe there's some kid who really believes that, you can do whatever you want.
Do you know my nephew said the same thing? He's like my sister was just like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? She's like, I want to be a game designer. No. No, I shouldn't say that. It's not true. It's just do your due diligence.
Right.
Know what the package encompasses. Don't be enamored by all the glam. Bragging rights, all that. Know that it's hard work. Know that it's technical. Know that it's very competitive.
Right.
Know that, like QA, for example, you're going to be playing games a shit ton, and you don't want to play games when you get home. No, it's going to be a lot of that.
Right.
Can you handle that at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And put in the time for what it takes to get to that competitive level. Otherwise, I mean, right now I feel lucky where I am right now. There are more people wanting to get into the game industry and break in than there was when I was trying to get into it. I think I got in at a lucky time, to be honest. Now you're up against way more talented, competitive, you name it, and you know that you need to you need to leverage whatever you can as possible to get there. Not only be good at what you're doing, but do the tricks that you and I did to figure out how we could get our foot in a door. I really pushed my way, just like you do in game design, you're throwing to see whatever sticks.
Yeah.
In the game I put in the door, I kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of everything. Some guys did it one track. They were really good at one thing, and it worked out for them. And unfortunately, that didn't work for me. So figure out what's going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
And just don't be a slacker. Don't be don't be like one of these wishy-washy people. And I've seen that time and time again because we went to a school where people weren't willing to put the time and the effort and the work. They thought, I'm just going to do this and do the bare minimum. You can't do the bare minimum, man. You got to put the blood, sweat, and tears, man. And that's just to say that you even give a chance to step up to the plate, And if you're not willing to do that, you'd rather just sit and play video games the whole time. It's not going to cut it.
Right. Cool. That's really good advice. It's just, like the whole keeping it real part is definitely, I think, huge because a lot of people, I think they get caught up in the
fantasy,
in the fantasy of it, and just I'm gonna make my own game, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and once all that, like we were saying earlier, once you realize how hard it is to play politics, to do the long hours, to be creatively, dried up, you start to think, why did I get in this in the first place? And you better have a good reason, better have a good answer for that question, or you're not going to make it very long. Hello, this is Joe Method, coming at you from Granada Hills, and today I'm interviewing Jason Neal.
Hey.
And you're generally what is your title as of right now?
Right now I'm a freelance game programmer and designer. In the past I've been an engineer, lead engineer, programmer, environment artist, lead producer, and most recently lead game developer.
Maybe they kind of, looking at some Unity or Photoshop videos online, maybe in high school or taking some classes, and they want to start making video games or they want to get started in the game industry. What do you recommend for them? How would you start out?
Don't be lazy. That's a big part of it, and it's something that we even ourselves have experienced in school. Is people that think they want to be there, but are just as indecisive as if they went to a normal school. They're just in the wrong place, and if you really want to do it and you really invest your time into it, you can do that. Grades don't even matter. Right. I graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA.
Wow, really?
I never passed algebra, but I was fantastic at math. I always scored perfect scores on all standardized tests, but school didn't work for me. I went to college and I graduated top of my class. Yeah. It had no distinction, no effect on me, because I got such low scores in school. And not to be afraid to challenge things like everybody else just kind of takes for granted. Right. I was always kind of rebellious and challenged things, and I would refuse to do my homework and then score perfect scores on tests and get failed because they thought I was cheating. even though I spent most of my time sleeping. It's just, and I never let any of that stop me from doing what I wanted to do, and I was always very motivated when it came to things I cared about. And people that want to do this thing, they should really care about it, because if they do, it won't be hard. It just happens. Right. You get better, you learn. If you struggle, you push past it. There will always be difficult times, but it gets easier if you love it, because you never give up on it. You spend all your time with it. I would work, 15 hours a day, or play games 15 hours a day, and it's my recreational time as well. So I'll work a full work day, come home and play some more, because that's my R&R, and because I love it, and it helps me get better helps me as a player, helps me as a game developer, and you know, if they really want to do it and be successful, they should just become it. And you see these stories of these people's like lately. I've been watching a lot of Twitch TV, which is like game streaming online that you can watch, and people will live stream all the stuff that they're doing. And there's kids like 18, 19 that are coming up in the world, and they're pretty decent at games, and they have a lot of character, and they make video games a professional career just by playing them and being entertainers and being podcasters, and because they love it and they can do it. And these aren't even developers; these are just people who play games, and they do it because they love it. And they do it all day,
right,
without sleep. They'll lose sleep over it, and that becomes very important, because if you don't have that feeling towards it, you'll just kind of become a person that uses it as a 9-to-5 job and just goes on their business, and you won't be happy.
Right.
I'm very happy because I feel the way I do, and I can do this all day long. I spent 28 hours straight making a game over the weekend for the hell of it. So that's a big passion. Passion is necessary, and if you don't have it, you need to find it. If you can't find it, then you probably are passionate about something else.
Yeah, that's true. I think it even goes over actual skill, because I don't think I'm good at art or programming, probably not even design, or at least I didn't start out that way. And just through sheer, just sheer work and just sheer, because through the whole time I was going to school, I was also working in the game industry full time, and I was even teaching at some point. I was doing all three at once, and because I wanted to know everything there was to possibly know about the game industry. And even though I'm not artistically inclined and I'm not good at math, it's just because I wanted to do it so bad that I got into like Riot Games back in 2007 and stuff like that. So just sheer determination, if you love it, will definitely carry across. And if you're good at art and programming already, well then you're that's an advantage, of course.
There's a lot of people that are fantastic at those things, but they don't like games at all.
Yeah.
And they'll work on games, but they won't care. They won't play the games that they make or anything. I don't want to be that person. I don't. I'd rather not know anything but be having lots of fun than be really good at it and not care about it. Yeah. I've heard stories of people like this one lady. She works for Sony now, and she told me like she was an amazing artist as a kid, amazing, but to the point where everybody was telling her how amazing she was, she didn't care. Now she doesn't do art at all because she despises it. She doesn't do any of it, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
If you're really good at art and it was something you're really passionate about, for other people to cause that to not be what something that you like is
right.
is wrong, and you should try to overcome that, because I think she would be an amazing artist, and because she loves working in games so much, even though she's not like a primary developer, that she would do amazing work if she was.
Right. Yeah. So again, skill doesn't matter. Like, if you care about what you're doing, especially if you're games,
you'll learn it.
You will learn. Just this, like we were talking about games earlier. If there's a big enough call to action, you will learn whatever it takes.
And if you show that motivation, it's that people will want to teach you.
Oh yeah, exactly. I believe Walt Disney said that when you're willing to admit that you don't understand something, there will be countless number of people who are willing to fill your head with information. I'm Skyping with David Zeithlian in San Francisco, California. How's it going, David?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And what is your current title right now?
I guess you could say I'm president of Zeithlian Games.
If you can give advice to maybe some kids coming out of high school or beginners who are interested in being a game designer, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say that that just doing is really important. Like you need to understand theory in a way
but you've just got to start making things. So if you're a programmer, start programming. If you're an artist, start doing art and try to finish a project. Like it depends on what your skill set is. If you're someone who, like, if you're a programmer, you could do an entire video game by yourself with terrible looking art, with terrible placeholder programmer art. You could do that, so you should. And if you can hook up with an artist to make it better, all the better. If you're an artist, probably there's a lot of people like me, begging for you, wanting your talents, and don't be too put off if it's like you're not getting to do your dream thing, the perfect project. It's not about that at that stage. You want to get experience doing any project to its completion.
Right.
And if you can complete anything, that's a huge accomplishment. It is so hard to complete things. Okay. It is hard to make a game. It's hard to write a book. It's hard to do anything. So get practice finishing things, and new opportunities will open up to you that you might not be able to predict. If you can't program at all, then you can make card and board games. You can make a mod to an existing game. You can work on that. Using StarCraft's editor or Hammer editor or Unreal editor. What I'm trying to get at is, like, just don't tell me that you can't do it. Don't tell me you can't do anything. There's something you can do. There's some way that you can participate in the making of a game or a mod, and that's what I want to see.
Right. That's really huge. Everything you said, especially the finish something, because I don't think a lot of people are actual finishers. So when you see someone actually finish a project, that's worth the most, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, you learn so much because there's so many things you're going to have to do that you didn't really realize or you didn't think about.
Yeah.
So there's the joke that the last, first you do the first 90% of the project and then you do the second 90% of the project. I found that to be true on practically everything I've worked on, is that once I'm 90% done, then I start to realize that I'm actually nowhere near done. Like I thought that point would be it, but it's like, I got to make a bunch of boxes or whatever, or that's my joke for physical games, but it could be anything. It's like, but then we wanted to put it on Steam, and it turns out there was actually a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we needed to do to make that work, and we had no idea.
Yeah.
It's always something, one way or another.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for someone just kind of getting into who's interested in getting in the game industry, who might be in high school or a similar situation?
Well, I'd say just like with anything, I guess, if you really want something, you're gonna get it. You just gotta keep working for it and just don't get discouraged. I mean, times have been tough and everything, but I mean, as long as you just keep working at it, just keep improving, keep learning new things, and just keep broadening your skill set, I think that anybody can do it.
Okay.
I mean, you just gotta really want it and just gotta really work for it.
Is that what got you through school?
Yeah, because I mean, I'll be honest, I've never been I wasn't born an artist.
Right.
So I've kind of had to develop it and learn it. And I mean, I might not be the best, but I feel that I'm getting there,
Right.
So you just gotta keep on doing it. I mean, you never really stop. You just gotta keep. Things are always changing. Things are getting better, like new engines, new hardware, everything. So you just gotta keep up with it and just don't stop, I guess.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point that I haven't brought up yet on these podcasts, is the ability to be adaptable.
Yeah.
Because when I was working at Target a long time ago, there was a guy who worked there in the garden center, and I asked him what he did before this, and he said he used to paint the covers of metal albums, Megadeth and stuff. I was like, oh, that's dope. Why aren't you still doing that? He's like, well, because things got digital and he never learned how to use a computer.
Oh, man.
I'm like, wow. So I always use that as an example of the importance of adapting to whatever is coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some good advice. All right, well, so to show how busy Giovanni and I are, we're actually like at lunch right now in my car.
Yeah.
And we actually have to get... Hey guys, what's up? So I have a lot of time because I'm driving from LA to San Diego for some reason. So everyone else had some really great advice. I mean, I'm so thankful for everyone who I interviewed, giving me their honest opinion and their perspective on how to get your start in the game industry. And now for my part of this. Basically, you might have noticed that there's kind of a theme going on. Everyone is pretty much saying the same thing. Everyone's kind of like telling you, just go for it, just do it, start working on something right now. And everyone is right. Everyone is right. So if I was just asked that question, how to get in the game industry, I'd probably tell you something along the lines of what everyone else just said. But instead, I'm going to tell you how exactly I got in the game industry. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to work in games, and for some reason, I just didn't think I could. I didn't think that I had the right education growing up when I was like a 10, 11, 12, all the way to like teenager. I didn't think I had the right education. I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I was creative enough. I just, really like playing games, and I'll read interviews with people like David Perry and, EGM and Ultra Game Players magazine, and I'll be like, oh, that's such a cool job. Too bad I can't do it. And so basically, that's how I always thought. Which I'm just not cut out for making games. I'm not artistic enough, etc. So one day I went after another dream to be a pro wrestler. And in the course of doing that, which I pretty much forced myself to do because it was such a breaking character for me to do something like that, I realized that if I can do this, why can't I be a game developer? That's a lot easier than being a pro wrestler. I can do this. And right when I was kind of going through that transition in thinking, I somehow came upon an ad at Activision to be a game tester. And I'm like, I could test games. I love games. I could play them all day and all night. So I went and I did that, and I took the test. And the funny thing was, it was actually easier being a tester at Activision than it was working at GameStop, because GameStop gave me the runaround. I applied like 3 of them, and I had like callbacks, and like 1 interview. But for some reason, I just couldn't work at GameStop. And once I took the interview at Activision, they just asked me, how much do you know about games? What's your knowledge of game, history and what genres and things like that. And then the test at EA was all about like, can you spot differences in here? Like, how good are you at noticing subtleties? And I'm pretty decent at that. So I started working in the game industry as a tester. And my first day on the job as a tester at Activision, they interviewed me and they said, well, where do you see yourself in the game industry? And I was like, because I was just like, yeah, I could get in the game industry. And I became a tester, and I was like, why can't I be a designer? I mean, I love this. My first day at Activision was like, this is so amazing. People get paid to do this. So they said, well, what do you see yourself in a few years? I'm like, I want to be a game designer. And the guy, I forgot his name. He said, his name was like Chud or something, some weird name. He was like the test lead at Activision. He's like, oh, well, the Art Institute is actually right behind us, the next building over. You should go there. And I'm like, I will. And so I started testing at Activision, and then I was there for a little bit. And then I went to EA, and then I ran into a buddy of mine, Chris Molina, who was going to AI for game design. And I'm like, that's the same school that the guy recommended. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I just went in, I signed up for all the millions of loans. And then I'm like, I don't care, I want to do this. So I started doing it. And and then Chris Molina said, you know what, you have to you can't just let school carry you through, because it probably won't. You have to be proactive about this. And I already was, because I was already working in the game industry while going to school, and I didn't see a problem in it. And I thought this was cool. This is a good perspective to have. So I just kept doing that. I just kept working in the game industry, and I kept going to school for it. And I did different roles. Like, I was a game master, and I kept taking all these classes on video game design and things like that. And And I learned a new perspective in game industry. I learned how a pipeline worked while I was going to school, and that was immensely helpful. One, because I knew how developers worked and how they lived, and not only just the technical educational part of it at school, but also the culture, lifestyle part of it at work, because I learned how to network and things like that. But two, it also kept me motivated to do a lot of things at once, because I was already in that rhythm of nonstop, working at work and then working at school and doing both and balancing them all, and then seeing the connection between both of them. Even though they're very different places, I saw the connection between them, how the game industry wove into both of them. So that helped me out a lot, just getting that work ethic down that you're going to need in the game industry. So I just kept going. And then came the time where I started getting jobs as a game designer while I was still going to school. And there was this mental block that I don't know if any of you other game designers have, or some of you budding game designers might have, which was, what gives me the right to be a game designer? It's the same block that made me think that, I couldn't get in the game industry, period. And then being a pro wrestler, breaking down personal barriers that I had of physical, mental, and social phobias that I used to have, I broke through that the hard way, and that kind of, that bridge that fell over when I broke through that wall kind of let me go into the game industry. Now I was at a different wall in my career, which was like, okay, what makes me tell everyone what's fun? What makes me tell a team what to do? And I was kind of like, I know about game development. I've been working on it for a long time, but what gives me the right to be a game designer? And even though I was a game designer already, I still didn't have that confidence. And the thing that helped me overcome that was Jesse Schell's book. I interviewed him like episode 16, I believe. And in there, one of the first things he says is that the only thing you need to know about a game designer is to tell yourself, I'm a game designer. I am a game designer. I'm a game designer already. And as motivational and as weird as that sounds, like it sounds like it's just some weird motivational speaker technique. It really does work. And the first thing I told Jesse Schell after I interviewed him was, thank you so much for writing that blurb, that first introductory chapter of your book, because that really helped me be confident in what I was doing. It made me think I was a game designer. It made me believe I was a game designer. And once I had that thought in my head, I started making confident choices in game design. And it's amazing how that works. And he said he almost didn't include that in his book because he thought it might have been, I don't know if he said too corny, but he just didn't think that it would be maybe too new age or new whatever. But he put it in anyway, and he says a lot of people compliment him on that, and I was one of them, because that paragraph literally helped me jump the wall in my way that made me become from I don't know if I deserve to be a game designer to I'm a game designer. And it is the power of positive thinking when when you say you deserve something, you're allowing it to come into your life. And that might be a little new agey to some of you guys, but that's really what happened. Is even though I was doing game design for a year or so, and I knew the techniques and technically how to make it work, just inside I didn't have the confidence that what I was doing was right. And that's bad for your team, because if you don't have confidence in what you're doing, your team is going to be they have a very shaky foundation, and it's not good for them. But that little thing in Jesse Schell's book made me realize that okay. And I just did it, and then after that, my decisions became way more clear, and I kind of overcame that little hump. So basically, that's how I got into the game industry and how I became a game designer. Was I had to break personal. There's a difference between wanting something and deserving something, and I don't think there's any way I would have deserved to be a game designer if I didn't become a game designer. It's a little weird concept, but I put a lot of time in, I put a lot of work in, and I made myself what I wanted to become. And then over time, it finally fell in my lap, what I wanted to do. And I know a lot of kids out there that I know, some students of mine and things like that, they're like, I want to be a game designer, and they just go apply for the job, and they just think having an idea is what it is. It's not about having an idea, and it's not about just going for the position. You have to earn the position, and you earn that position way before you even apply for it, because back before I even was a game designer, when I was still going to school and I was working at Square Enix as a game master, which is the entry-level position, I was doing independent games and I was putting teams together, and I was a producer and I had an artist and I had a programmer. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was molding that position for me. Even though I didn't deserve it yet, I was doing the job of it while going to school and while going to work. And then when that game failed, I did it again. I got another team together and I started making another indie game. And before I was ever an official game designer, I was in the role of a game designer, making decisions a game designer would make, making decisions a producer would make. And then it's kind of like, you know, it's just a matter of time before it officially happened and I officially became a game designer. You know, there's a Paul Allen has a really good, I'm sorry, oh no, what's his name? Hold on, I'll remember it. Hold on. Tim Allen? No, that's the home improvement guy. There's a really good quote in this book called As a Man Thinketh. And the last guy's name is Allen. I forget his first name. But his quote is, "You don't get what you want, you get what you deserve." And that is really true. I know that sounds like more just motivational New Agey stuff, but it's really true, actually. You don't get the things that you want because everyone will get everything because everyone wants everything. You get what you deserve, and you get what you deserve based on your actions, what you've done, and what you've become. And I wouldn't believe that if I didn't experience it for myself, because I really wanted to become a professional wrestler. And at the time that I went to school, I did really nothing to deserve it other than to just want it. But when I became a game designer, I did a lot of things, most of them at the same time, to become a game designer before I ever officially was one. I didn't go apply to be a game designer. I did things that game designers did, and that made up my character. And then there was no other choice. There's no other way it could have worked out than for me to officially become a game designer in a company, because I had already been living that life. And it was just a matter of time before it came to fruition. You know, I had planted the seeds of a game designer, and I lived through them, I worked through them, and then finally it blossomed. And I know that's kind of a little too, once again, it might be a little too hipstery or new agey, but that's exactly what happened, and that's how it happened. And that's my tip to you, is to be the thing you want to be, earn it, pay your dues, live the life, live the life of the life you want to live right now, and then eventually it'll come to fruition because you've already planted those seeds. So that's my advice on how to get in the game industry. And now here's the outro for every podcast I've ever done. All right, thanks for listening, and feel free to ask me questions on my Formspring account at formspring.me/JoeMethod. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/JoeMethod. And I will answer your questions either on Formspring, in a tweet, on this podcast, or if it requires more visuals, I will answer it in a YouTube video. Also, be sure to check out my fundraising page at firstgiving.com/fundraiser/JoeMethod/JoeMethod fundraising page. There's a link on joemethod.com under the dev blog tab. It's a really cool organization. Basically, what this charity does is they give money to hospitals, to sick kids, and they buy them consoles and peripherals and games. It's really cool. So I would appreciate if you would donate it through the link there. And it's for Child's Play charity. It's really cool. Check it out. You can also check this podcast out on iTunes. Be sure and rate it. I'd really appreciate it. And you could also check it out using the Stitcher app, available on iPhone, iPad, and Android. Thanks for listening.